true. In today's episode, we're continuing the coverage of Crystal Rogers, who disappeared in 2015, has been deemed to have been murdered, and now a second person and the main suspect since day one has been arrested. And they just had their arraignment this past week. We're on Monday today, so last week basically around this time. And we're going to be diving into it as we have continued to cover the Crystal Rogers story. As we know, this is weird all around the Bardstown, Kentucky area because there's been multiple unsolved murders. And now, not only are we probably on the cusp of one solved, maybe even a second one surrounding the same case might actually be solved. And the next question is, will someone else be arrested for this murder? Two people have been arrested, but there's a third person tied to this. I'm not too sure how those balloons came about. My apologies. There's some updates or something. And so let's go ahead and dive into what we know at this time. In the small town of Bardstown, Kentucky, the murder mysteries have captivated the community for years. And now these latest developments in the case have left everyone stunned and eager for answers. You see, during the arraignment of Brooks Houck, who was charged with the murder of Crystal Rogers, a bombshell was dropped by the prosecutors. They revealed that they had the gun that they believed was used to kill Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard. As we know, Tommy has been actively searching for his missing daughter before his own tragic death. And so the courtroom was literally filled with family members, and the news of the gun sent shockwaves through the court. Now, you can even see in the little striped leopard type whatever that dress is, you can see Brooks Houck's mom in the courthouse as well. And they try to get answers from her as well as, did your son do this? Do you know anything? She was tight-lipped, didn't have a word to say at all. But the courtroom, it was filled with even Crystal's mom, who was in the courtroom along with other family members. And this news about having the gun that killed Tommy Ballard, this literally sent shockwaves through the whole room because Crystal's family did not know this was about to be mentioned. And they shared this was pleasant to hear. What they didn't really say is, do they know where Crystal is? What happened exactly to Crystal? But in order to try to get a bond reduction, that's when prosecutors said, no, this is what we have on him. There's no way this guy should be out. And so the prosecutors, that they shared that they were currently testing a gun. Literally, they're literally searching and testing a gun that they suspect was purchased from a man named Nick Houck. I don't know if these are the guns in there. I don't know exactly. This is also the IRS picking up guns. And with that, we don't really know a lot of this. This is still a very developing case. And when Nick Houck sold his rifle, he was using a fake name when he sold the gun. And they suspected that his involvement in Tommy's murder as well. Because in this, you see, Nick, he failed a lie detector test, which would ultimately cause him to lose his job. With that also, in this, he literally was arguing with the person behind the interview, the person who was giving him the lie detector. He was basically arguing with him, saying, "You are wrong." And the guy says, the interviewer says, "No, this is actual facts. This is you know the truth." He said, "This test tells me you know the truth." But he's not sharing the truth. He's not saying anything. This is Nick Houck pictured here. He's not saying a thing, but yet we find out that Nick actually used a fake name when he sold this rifle. And so they suspect that he's involved in Tommy's murder as well, but he's not arrested yet. The Ballard family, they were in disbelief when they heard this, but they're hopeful that justice would finally be served for Tommy and Crystal. The prosecutor explained the matching criteria that they had found, giving them more confidence in this case. And the family, they held on to this glimmer of hope, knowing that there were still more pieces to uncover. In a surprising turn of events, the prosecutor, they too had a few things to share. They want this $10 million bond to stand. And so the prosecutor, they're accusing members of the Houck family of secretly recording a grand jury proceedings, which is a violation of Kentucky law. They are under the impression that the family secretly recorded. And with that also, it's like, okay, that is a no-no. Why would they do this? And so this is also a big thing, but no one will most likely face any charges. With that being said, this accusation, it further deepened the mystery and raised questions about the integrity of this investigation. As the courtroom emptied, reporters, they were trying to get answers from Rosemary Houck, that is the mom of Brooke, about her son's alleged involvement in Tommy's death. She remained silent, leaving the questions unanswered. She didn't have anything to say about this. But in the arraignment, the defense, which is closer to Brooks Houck's picture on here, the prosecutor is the one that has no hair, and the defense, he submitted a request to lower Brooks' $10 million bond, arguing that it was oppressive. And they emphasized that he had a lot to lose and wouldn't be able to properly defend himself if he was held in jail until the trial. And the judge took time to review the arguments and promised to issue a written order with this decision. He has yet to give a decision, making many believe that this bond of $10 million is going to stand. And amidst all this chaos, there were discussions about the possibility of changing the venue for the trial to ensure a fair process. The media attention surrounding this case, it's obviously over everything. And so it's very immense. And the defense wanted to safeguard their client's right to a fair trial. Everyone deserves a fair trial. They explored various options, including bringing in a jury from outside Bardstown or even moving the trial to a different county altogether. And so that was their argument in court. Now, realistically, this trial is not expected to happen anytime soon. With the complexity of the case and the voluminous evidence, this could be more than a year before Brooks would face trial. The defense attorney even mentioned the potential trial date of 2025, emphasizing the long road ahead in this case. And, you know, we know that he's not the only one that has been arrested in this case. You had Joseph Lawson, who was also arrested in this case. He was first arrested in this case. And then I did a video and I was like, I think it's just a matter of time. It was like the same day or the next day, boom, news broke that Brooks Houck was arrested. And so Joseph Lawson, he was indicted on charges that are related to Crystal's case. This serves as a reminder that there were still many individuals involved in the ongoing investigation. Now, what we want to know is, what about Nick Houck? He has not been arrested yet, right? The brother has not been arrested. But my guess is there's a chance he still will be arrested. See, after this new evidence reveals that during Brooks Houck's arraignment, we find out that Nick might be related to this case when it comes to Tommy Ballard. You see, this was a bombshell that the prosecutors dropped that links this new person of interest not to Crystal Rogers' case, but to Tommy Ballard's case. And when asked by the judge if prosecution was investigating any other cases that may be linked to Crystal's case, that's when special prosecutor Shane Young, again, the guy that doesn't have hair in that picture, reveals new details about Tommy Ballard's case. He says that they are in possession of the gun that killed Tommy, which is Crystal's father. He was mysteriously shot and killed while he was on a hunting trip with his grandson a year after she was killed. Young said that they purchased the gun from Nick House, but here's the thing. Nick used a fake name. When he sold the gun, he didn't even give his real name. What's he trying to hide? And so they're currently testing that gun, but prosecutors believe that that is the gun that killed Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard. Does that not feel like we're about to get two solves in this? Because truth is, we want Crystal's case to be solved. We want Tommy's case to be solved. This needs to be solved. And so what other roles do some of the family members play? Does the mom play any role? Because my gosh, I'm going to tell you, the way I was feeling just watching her demeanor in this video, it was like, okay, this seems like a scary lady, but I'm not going to judge. You know, everyone gets their day in court. But it does look like they have a lot of evidence around Brooks Houck. Now, why does Nick use a different name? You know, and Brooke, he was interviewed by the cops early on, and they named him the main suspect. And during some time around this interview, Nick Houck calls his brother and says, do not answer any more questions. They're going to try to trip you up. That's literally what he was saying. And now Brooks Houck being arraigned. He's in court on a $10 million bond. Right now, it does not look like he is getting out. And at the end of the day, justice for Crystal Rogers. We do not know much about her. We do not know much about why this happened to her. We do know that her and Brooks Houck shared her youngest child together. They shared the youngest child together, and last we knew, they were on a date. And so Nick, he's also, not only is he Brooks' brother, but he's also a former Bardstown police officer. And as I shared, he was fired after Chief Rick McCubbin, who was then the police chief, said that Nick interfered with the investigation. And so the prosecuting attorney in this case now, he says that the firearm that we purchased is from Nicholas Houck, who was using a fake name when he sold the rifle. So sounds like an undercover team might have bought a rifle from Nick, something along those lines. But he says there are 5 criteria that we are looking at, and so far it matched 4 of the 5 criteria, giving them a lot of confidence that it looks like they might have the actual murder weapon. And, Tommy Ballard, he creates this Team Crystal page on Facebook in an effort to search. So he was searching really hard. We don't know how close he came to discovering who did what to his daughter. But before we knew it, he was savagely killed while he was camping on a camping trip with his grandson. And now we find that Nick Houck might be related to that death. And so, do you think Nick Houck will be arrested next? if he's there's no doubt that they are looking at him very hard in this. But is he going to be the next one arrested in this case? Well, truth is, my guess is maybe in reference to Tommy Ballard, because they said they've linked that gun to him. Why would anyone need to kill him? Brooks Houck, he's the man that's charged in connection to this missing murder of Crystal Rogers. Again, she disappeared 8 years ago in Bardstown. And so now he has his arraignment, and we find out that some shocking things behind this. But prosecutors are suggesting that there's a possible link between the killing of Crystal Rogers' father, Tommy Ballard, and her own disappearance. And with that, now we want to know why. What could he have possibly have to do with this? And because prosecutors, they bring it up that there's a possible connection with killing of Crystal Rogers' father. Okay? Meaning that Mr. Ballard was getting close and someone felt like they had to do something about it. What else could these people be associated with if they're capable of doing this? Now, in reference to his bond hearing, they're arguing. The prosecutor and the defense attorney, they're like, it should stand, it shouldn't stand. It should stand, it shouldn't stand. And now he's been charged with the 2015 death of his girlfriend. He appeared in court on Thursday of last week. And so his girlfriend at the time, Crystal Rogers, a mother of 5 children, disappeared 8 years ago. Now, as I shared, Brooks, he's been long time considered a suspect, but he wasn't officially charged until last week. And that's when we find out about the bombshell in these proceedings. And why would his brother use that false name? That blows my mind there. This is the first time that there's been a possible link between the murders of Crystal Rogers and her father, but Crystal's mom said early on, I truly believe that Tommy Ballard getting answers for the disappearance of Crystal Rogers led to his death. So though this is the first time we're finding some actual evidence that there's a possible link, Mom said from early on, this is connected. Literally. And so with that, it's like, okay, this is definitely not a good thing for the Brooks Houcks. But now I think bottom line is we all just want answers. We all just want answers, right? And this is Sherry Ballard on your screen. Now, he did plead not guilty in court. Let's make that very clear. He did plead not guilty during his arraignment. And so I think it's key that we know, hey, according to him, he's not guilty. Now, it was entered on his behalf by his attorney, Brian Butler, as you've seen in the picture. And he argued that Houck was a low flight risk, and he asked for his $10 million bond to be reduced to a $500 cash bond. What is your thought process on that? And so I find that to be more like, I think that should stick. If they have so much evidence, you should keep that $10 million. But the defense is saying, let's reduce it to a $500,000 cash bond because he's not a threat. And his attorney says he has family that loves him. He has friends that love him. His son is here. His business is here. He cannot and he will not leave. And he's proven that. But Young, the prosecutor argued that the high bond was justified in this. He says it is justified because if you look at what he has a lot of assets. And so he believes that it is justified, showing the combined tax assessments for the 3 companies that Brooks own more than $8 million worth. So he has a lot of money. Now, Young says $500, that is to an individual who is a multimillionaire, when you're looking at the rest of your life in prison, is not a lot to pay. He's saying $500,000 is a drop in the bucket for this man. Don't make it so easy for him to get out. And then, then you have to also think about, what about the witnesses? There are witnesses in this case. What's he going to do? What's going to be his thought process behind that, right? If he is a desperate man, which we don't really know. Right now, he's saying, I'm innocent, I'm not guilty. But we also know from the get, this guy has been on the radar. From the very beginning, he has been on their radar. And so now that he's had his first court appearance, it's going to be a little while before we find out next. But during this arraignment, we find out some mind-blowing. That gun that was recovered connected to Tommy Ballard's murder. You see, on the morning of November 19, 2016, just 16 months after his daughter's disappearance, Tommy Ballard, he was preparing for a hunting trip with his 12-year-old grandson on the family property next to Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown. And an unknown person fired a shot and hit Ballard in the chest, instantly killing him. My first thought in even hearing that is, was this a professional? Was this a professional that one shot hit him in the right spot from a distance? That's my first thought. Like, why didn't they shoot multiple times to make sure he was dead if they wanted him dead? So those are things that go through my head. And so, I shared that he created this Team Crystal group, and it was a group for community members dedicated to finding Crystal Rogers and bringing her home. And again, no one's been charged in this murder, but the prosecuting attorney, Young, told Chief Circuit Judge Charles Sims III during the arraignment that law enforcement is investigating whether that homicide is linked to Crystal Rogers' case. And so he said that they're investigating that weapon that was used to kill. That, to me, wow, right? And so that was in defense of, no, do not drop his bond. But what about the secretly recording grand jury proceedings? What's that about? Because also the prosecuting attorney Young, he alleges that Brooks Houck had several members of his family, including his brother, former Bardstown Police Department, Nick, his mother, and his sister secretly record a grand jury proceeding in 2015. This was shortly after Crystal Rogers had went missing. What's the purpose behind that? And so the grand jury proceedings, they're typically supposed to be all about secrecy and not open to any public or any members of the media, meaning there's no recording. Nothing gets out of this room. So, but nothing's going to happen out of that. And so that's that, along with the $10 million bond. Those are the three biggest takeaways from that arraignment. What happens next, my friends? Do you think that $10 million bond is too high? If they truly believe they have an open shut case, I don't know if they do. I don't know what other evidence. I would think there's more evidence involved in this. And, the defense attorney, he's like $500,000 and put a GPS monitor on him. He's not going anywhere until he goes somewhere, or until he does something desperate, or until a witness disappears. We don't know, right? We always have to be careful. But you're talking about a guy that owns over 70 properties. He's got money to get out on a $500,000 bond. Now the judge is reviewing that's going to happen. A pre-trial conference is scheduled for like early February of 2024. But a trial date has not been set. More is going to keep coming out. But these are some surprising details if you ask me. I'm kind of blown away by it. What is your takeaway on this? What do you think about this whole thing? My friends, thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. Until next time, my friends, the whole goal is to be a voice for these victims and to be a voice for you, because you never know what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. I'm Manny Rodriguez. This has been another episode of Deep True Crime. Until next time, my friends, be safe, be alert, be aware. Peace.